Like it or not, every year, thousands of people move to LA. I did this myself about 6 years ago, and I've seen people time and time again learn a few things the hard way. So today, we're gonna go over the top things you need to know when moving to Los Angeles. So this video that I am posting today, I actually made months ago, like beginning of the quarantine. I had a different video scheduled for this week and then my hard drive crashed last night. I debated putting it up because, you know, who's moving to LA right now? Actually, people kind of are. I actually still get comments and messages all the time from people looking to move to LA. I don't think it's like this significant thing I've done. A lot of people do it, you know, it's really nothing crazy, but I thought I would do a follow-up video to that original one I did a couple years ago about moving to LA, you know, what it's really like to move here and live here, and just some advice if you're thinking of moving. So the first one's kind of obvious, and that's that you should really visit beforehand. I know a lot of people glamorize that they just found somewhere to live online, booked a ticket, and never looked back, but in reality, that's not always a great idea. It's a very sprawling city, so the different areas all have a pretty different feel to them, and you might pick an area that's just not a good fit for you. Like anywhere, LA is different in real life than it is in movies and TV. This is true of anywhere, but with LA, people especially have this preconceived idea because it's in so many more movies and TV shows. So you really gotta remind yourself it's not gonna be like that. You need to go and visit and see what it's really like. So the reason I think it's important to visit is there are so many different neighborhoods, and since it's so sprawling, the one that you choose to live in, you're gonna spend a lot of time in. There are dozens of potential neighborhoods you could live in, but today we're gonna touch on 4 of them. And these are ones that have a distinct personality or that you've probably heard of before. Starting with West Hollywood, this is the most central of the 4. At $2,200 for a 1-bedroom, this is one of the more expensive areas. West Hollywood is like living in what you see LA like on TV. Everyone here is just a lot more trendy. There's more trendy restaurants, coffee shops. It's just different than the rest of LA. It's basically the most LA part of LA. There is no shortage of trendy shops, restaurants, and cafes over here. If you live in the right spot, it's possible for this neighborhood to be really walkable. Sometimes I feel like it's a little too LA for me, but if that's what you're looking for, then this is the spot for you. It's great that it's really central, but it's not super close to any freeway entrances. The next area is Hollywood, and most people already know that this is not as cool as it seems online or in movies or TV shows. It's really not the best spot to live in LA. Most people live here for maybe a year and then move. I wouldn't honestly recommend it unless you work near it. I don't know, it's just like not the spot, but it is a little bit less expensive than other areas, so for that reason it can be worth it. The average rent for this area was reported to be about $1,800, so it is a bit less expensive than West Hollywood. The thing is though, it's filled with touristy shops that are honestly kind of run down, and I really never find myself having a reason to come over here. It also doesn't feel quite as safe as West Hollywood. There's a reason they call it Holly Weird, and not in a cute way. No one's ever like, keep Hollywood weird. Now we're gonna go over to the east side to a spot that has been called the Brooklyn of Los Angeles. So going a little farther east, we have Silver Lake, and this is a really cool, trendy area, but it's not as expensive as West Hollywood or Santa Monica. Silver Lake has quite a few trendy shops and restaurants, and it feels kind of tucked away because there's a lot of hills over here. The average rent for a 1-bedroom is $1,900, so a little more expensive than Hollywood, but it's definitely a more desirable area. The type of people over here are mainly creatives, people in their 20s or 30s. It's less bougie than West Hollywood, so people are more laid back and kind of alternative, I would put it. While I was over here just this day, I saw a few people holding cameras, freelancers working out of coffee shops, and a lot of street art. So if West Hollywood is reality TV, Silver Lake is like an indie movie. One thing I did want to talk about is that Silver Lake in recent years has been very gentrified. I know I talk about it in that clip, kind of like, oh, it's this cool hipster trendy place, and that is sort of how it's known among people moving here. So yes, now a lot of people do move there. There are more trendy things, but there's a lot of people who aren't happy about that. I would feel bad if I just, you know, put in this video, yeah, it's this really cool, trendy, hipster, I hate that word, place to move to, check it out, because in reality, it's like, it's not a good thing for everyone that this has happened, so I just wanted to put that out there. And going all the way to the west side, we have Santa Monica. You might think this is just a bunch of surfers, but in reality, there's a lot of tech companies in this area. And with that, you get a lot of people that aren't stereotypically LA. It's walkable, there's tons of things to do over here, places to eat, you've got the beach. The average one bedroom over here is around $3,100, so it's definitely the most expensive of all these areas. So Santa Monica and Venice are, of course, really expensive because you're by the beach. Santa Monica is probably the most expensive area you could live in LA, and I don't think it's super worth it, because if you live over there, you're kind of trapped over there. You're 10 miles from West Hollywood, 15 miles from downtown, and the traffic gets really bad leaving that area. So just something to know, it's expensive and you're kind of stuck over there, but you are by the beach, so that's really cool. It is an area that does have a pretty significant homeless population, just, you know, so you know that. If that's something you take into consideration with a place you're moving, I think that's good to know. But I know a lot of people that live over there and they haven't, you know, had any problems. I don't want this to come across as insensitive, but I do think that it is something that some people take into consideration, so I wanted to bring it up. So these are just a few of the many neighborhoods, so I encourage you to research the other ones and actually visit them if you can. LA is so big, there's so many areas. I mean, I didn't even touch on the Valley. The Valley is a huge place that people that are just moving usually move to because it's a lot cheaper than the main part of LA. It's generally pretty safe over in the Valley. It does feel more suburban in a lot of areas, but it is a bit of a drive. Anytime you need to actually go into LA, it's not the most convenient. Another thing I think you need to know before you get here is that people drive very aggressively here. If you just learned how to drive, I mean, this may not be the place for you. I had never been in a car accident in my life until I moved to California. I got in two within 2 years of being there, and neither of them were my fault. I actually wasn't even driving in one of them. It was just people being reckless and dangerous. Like, people do drive more dangerously here. And there's one thing that LA drivers do in particular that would seem crazy to do where I'm from. Alright, so let's say we have an intersection and these cars are going straight through the light, but these cars are waiting to turn left. Since they have a green light and not a green arrow, of course they have to wait for all of these cars to go by first, but a lot of times in LA there's so many cars that time never comes. So instead, people decide to go when the lights are turning yellow and red, and oftentimes a couple of cars will even go through when the light is red. So I'm not like encouraging you to do this, but I do think this is one of those things that's good to know before you get here, or you're gonna be shocked when you get in a car and someone else is driving and they do this. You're gonna be like, what are they doing? Another thing you might wanna consider is not getting a car at all. For a long time, LA was known as a place where you need to have a car to survive, but in this day and age with rideshare apps, I know several people that live in LA that don't own cars, and it kind of works out for them because they work from home and they're saving money on insurance and maintenance costs. If you live somewhere where you can walk to most things and then use a rideshare other times, especially if you're just testing out living in LA, you may not need a car. I like to have one and I would recommend it, but it's not how it was 10 years ago where you're gonna be kind of stranded if you don't have one. Next thing to know is that even though it is mostly sunny here, it does rain occasionally, especially in the month of June. When it rains, people sort of forget how to drive. People are a little nervous. If it doesn't rain somewhere for a really long time, there will be kind of this oil buildup, so when it finally does rain, the roads are extra slick. So on this road, actually, you can very clearly see the oil running down from this car right here. So that's kind of just everywhere after it rains. If it's really downpouring and it hasn't in a long time, you're gonna find that people are gonna flake because it's raining, which would never happen in a place where rain is common, but here in LA, that does happen on the rare occasion that it is rainy. Another thing you need to know is that you don't have to sign a 1-year lease for a place like this. Instead of a 1-year lease, you can actually sublease a place for just a few months. All you really need to do is type in Los Angeles apartment subleases, and you'll find a ton of options. Different social media sites will have groups for this, so you can check those out too. The nice thing about this is a lot of them are willing to lease it out with the furniture. You're also able to explore a neighborhood more extensively by actually living in it, but you're not that committed to it if you don't like it. I know a lot of people who have signed a 1-year lease, bought a bunch of furniture, and then realized 3 months later it's just not for them. Then they spend a lot of money breaking the lease and they have to deal with all the furniture. I also know a lot of people who have just subleased for a few months, realized it wasn't for them, or realized they liked it and moved on from there. I think a lot of people just don't even think about the option of subleasing, but it's actually a really good idea if you're just testing out a place and you're not sure if you really want to stay there long term. And the last thing that you need to know is that the water is really not that warm at all. Like, it's actually really cold. Oh no, oh my god. Dang it, it actually got my pants. Ugh. Okay, so you don't really need to know this one, but it is pretty funny how many people expect the water to be a lot warmer than it actually is. So remember, this is all just from my experience, but there's so many different neighborhoods and types of people, you won't really know if it's for you unless you give it a try yourself.